Okay, we begin. We're going to continue Tanya. Today we're going to do chapter 7 and 8. We're not going to do it inside. We'll do it outside. Just to explain what's going on. Sorry? Just to move a little faster and cover more ground because I don't know how much time we're going to have in the summer. And I want to cover as much as we can. So let's bring us up to speed. What do we have so far? We discussed at length 4 chapters actually, chapter 2, 3, 4, and 5, what the godly soul is and what it wants. Right? Chapter 2, we said the godly soul's spiritual DNA is part of Hashem. Doesn't matter what kind of neshama, what level, what you do, what you don't do. You have a godly part. And then we explained the neshama's personality. The godly soul's personality is made up of 2 parts. Remember this? What are the 2 parts of the neshama? No, that's the 2 neshamas, but the 2 parts of the neshama's personality. The mind, intellect, and the heart. So the neshama starts about understanding Hashem, and then when it understands it and connects to it, it starts to feel for Hashem. It's the godly soul. And then what does it do with all these feelings for Hashem? Then we get chapter 4, it puts it into clothing. What's the clothing of the neshama? 3 things. Action, speech, and your thoughts. And when you're talking about the neshama, the godly soul, the nefesh elokit, its thoughts are thoughts of Torah, its words are words of Torah and prayer, and its actions are actions of mitzvahs. And we explained that mitzvahs are not just important because they help you express your love for Hashem, but the mitzvahs are important because it's the only way to really attach yourself to Hashem. Because Hashem puts himself into the mitzvahs, and when you do a mitzvah, it's like giving Hashem a hug, shaking Hashem's hand, giving Hashem a kiss. Right? Because Hashem is not possible to grasp or understand. Can't. Hashem is too lofty. Right? The only way to connect to Hashem is through ways that Hashem allowed himself to be connected to. And that's what mitzvahs are. Mitzvahs are ways that Hashem allows for you to connect to him. Clear? Yeah. Then we went to chapter 5. Chapter 5 was the neshama's food. And neshama's food is what? Something that it takes in. Mitzvahs is something I do. I go into them. They're clothing. But Torah, when I understand Torah, goes into my mind. So I'm taking Hashem's Torah, Hashem's wisdom, Hashem's ideas, Hashem's desire, Hashem's will, and it's going into my mind.
So basically, the action. I'm confused. What's the food?
Food is understanding Torah. Sorry? Yeah, because we take it into our minds. It becomes part of who we are, right? Like when you eat food, it becomes part of your body. When you think ideas and you connect ideas in Torah, they become part of the way you think. Not exactly, because a mitzvah is something you go into, you do it. The tefillin makes a mark on your arm, but about an hour later, there's nothing left of the tefillin on your arm. But the Torah, even for days and weeks after you learned the Torah, there's still something in your brain that has that Torah. Like the food that becomes part of you. Whereas mitzvahs are different because you put them on. They don't go into you. Except for there's a few mitzvahs that they go into you. For example, eating matzah on Pesach. It's a mitzvah that goes into you. That's not usually the experience. Usually the experience of a mitzvah is you do it.
So wait, but learning
goes into you.
Your clothes and your...
That's correct. It's both clothes and food. Because Torah is also a mitzvah. And it's something you go into the study. But it's also food because it goes into you. That was chapter 5. Chapter 6, that we did last week on Thursday, was chapter 6. We just started to describe what the animal soul is. And we said that the animal soul also has a mind and a heart. And it also has thought, speech, and action. But the mind and the heart is different for the animal soul. In the godly soul, the mind it starts in the mind. It starts off with ideas of what's the truth of Hashem. And then those ideas become the way I feel. Whereas the animal soul starts off with what? How do I feel? What do I want? What makes me feel good? And then he uses the brain to figure out what's the best way to get it. Or the brain tells it, oh, that's good for you. This is a better steak. That's a better car. It's a better toy, right? But the brain doesn't tell the heart how to feel. It doesn't create the feelings of the heart. It just tells the heart which way are the better feelings, better things that are good for you. Or what are the things that are scary for you that you should stay away from. Right? And now we start to see a difference between the godly soul and the animal soul. which is really the difference between Kedusha and Klippa. This is the last thing we talked about in chapter 6. What's Kedusha? How do you define holiness? Something that is surrendered, gives itself up for Hashem. Sorry? That's correct. And Klippa says, I. So the animal soul says, I'm hungry, I want. And the godly soul says, what do you want? What's your truth? So it's not about I. That's what then.
This is the chapter of the battle?
Not yet.
What chapter is
9. We're going to get there.
this is
Tomorrow.
the animal soul?
Now we're just describing the animal soul. The animal soul is Klippa. And Klippa is defined by I want, I'm hungry. And therefore, so everything really, a lot of what we do in our life is the animal soul. I'm hungry, I'm tired, I want to play, I want to run, I want to laugh. Life. Right, living life is an animal soul, because the animal soul is not a, right, the God, exactly. The animal soul is a biological creature. Living life is the animal soul, it's correct. When you say the word I, not in a bad way, who do you mean, the godly soul, the animal soul? The animal soul. I, that's how I feel, that's how I want, right? So it isn't evil in the moral sense, necessarily, but if you think of good as holy and bad as Klippa, then the animal soul is bad, but only because it's Klippa that says I.
People make the animal soul sound bad.
I understand that. That's the mistake, because that's one of the big things Alter did by not using the words Yetzer Hara. When you say, oh, hi, joining us? Sorry? When you say Yetzer Tov Yetzer Hara, you think of good, mitzvah, versus evil, I don't know, murder or something. Or some Aveda, even not murder, not so yeah, any Aveda. What about just eating? You don't think of that in terms of Yetzer Hara, Yetzer Tov. You just think of, okay, I have to eat. But then the Alter Rebbe says, no. So that's why so Yetzer Hara is a part of the animal soul. Because the animal soul could become terribly bad. Right? What does the word Yetzer Hara mean? Translate the words. What's Yetzer mean? Desire or inclination. Right? So it's an inclination to do bad things. So it's only one part of the animal soul.
Yeah.
One part of the animal soul is that if I live a selfish life for a long enough time, I'm gonna end up being so selfish that I don't mind doing Avedas. And I'm being so selfish, I don't mind hurting somebody else for my needs. Right, so the God, so that's a good question. That's right. So let's get that, because that's gonna be a little bit of chapter 7 and 8. If it's godly soul here and animal soul here, then we have to have our animal soul, right? Because the animal soul is living like a normal human being. I have to have that, otherwise how do I live, right? That's what you're saying. The word hara means bad, right? It's normal. But it's bad in the sense that what it wants to do is, okay, you know what? It's not bad necessarily, but what it wants to do is bad things, right? But even that want to do bad things, only one part of it in Nefesh Bahamut.
The only thing that's really bad
is the act of an Aveda.
But what's really bad? Nothing is. What's just the definition of bad?
Okay, that's a good question. What's the definition of bad? So it depends what you mean. Yeah. If you mean in the moral sense, let's say moral, just the way people live, then bad is probably defined by hurting somebody else or hurting yourself, right? But in Torah, that's not necessarily the definition of bad, and certainly not in Tanya. In Tanya, the definition of bad is anything that is against what Hashem wants. So in Aveda.
What's a person or thing that's the definition of that?
So in Tanya, the definition is anything that's not in the service of Hashem. Klippa. So what Tanya thinks of as bad, for a normal person, is just living. Right? I'm hungry.
Of pure evil?
That's what I'm saying. Depends what you're asking.
No human is pure evil.
Depends what you mean. Depends what you're asking. If you're asking, whose definition are you asking for? The Tanya's definition? Or just like the regular definition out there in the world?
Your definition.
So it depends what I'm talking and who I'm talking to. When we're talking about Tanya, the definition of bad is anything that's not for Hashem. Which means even saying, I'm thirsty. In that sense is bad.
But my question is, what's a thing that's pure evil? Like a thing, a person, a thing itself, not an action.
Okay, that's a good question. Acts also exist. So let's just take something that's not kosher.
Yeah.
That's ultimate klippa.
That's pure evil.
It's pure klippa. So in this sense, if we're going to call bad that which is klippa, that which is not connected to Hashem, then non-kosher food.
But non-kosher food. isn't pure evil. There's still some good connected.
So that's a good question. That's something we'll talk about today. So it comes up a little bit, but let's just talk about that because it's here. You know the word mutar and asr? Yeah. Yeah. So what does the word mutar mean? It means permissible. And the word asr means forbidden. Now every morning, when you say brachot, you say Baruch Atah Hashem, matir asurim. What does that mean? What? Hashem lets us do Avedas. Matir asurim, he makes that which is forbidden permissible, chas v'shalom. So what does it mean, matir asurim? Matir means to release. To release. Asurim, that who's locked up. Someone. What's a jail called in Hebrew? Bet asurim. It's a house where people are locked in. So the word asur also means forbidden, and it also means locked. That's right. It means we're free people. Matir asurim. Thank Hashem for being free people. So matir means to release. Mutar means released and permissible. And asur means forbidden, and it also means tied up or locked. So how do these two translations connect? It gets to what you were saying. Because every single thing has a part of Hashem in it. It has Hashem's energy. If it doesn't exist.
Is that considered?
1 second, let's explain in a second. Everything has Hashem's energy in it, right?
Yes.
Including this table, the phone, all of it. Otherwise it can't exist, right? So that little part of Hashem's energy that's in something, is the good that's in something.
Yeah.
That's the good, right? We said before that what's the definition of good? Connected to Hashem. Definition of bad is disconnected from Hashem. So there's a little tiny bit of good connection to Hashem, Hashem's energy. It's in everything, including in the Satan. Otherwise, it doesn't exist.
So nothing is purely evil. So nothing is purely good.
So nothing is 100% evil because otherwise it doesn't exist. It's got to be 99.9%. So then what does the word asr mean? What does the word forbidden mean? Or the word tied down, locked? It means that the little bit of good in there is so small and so hidden that it's locked. You can't access it. The godly energy that's in there is so far deeply hidden in that thing, which is why it's not kosher, which is why it's a satan. It's so deep down there that if you couldn't access it and use it for good. I'll give you an example in the mutar way. When I eat, let's just use the example of eating, but it could be anything really, talking, eating, anything, playing sports, working out, anything. Let's just use eating, it's a good example. There are 3 different things that can motivate me to eat. Let's just say it's kosher food. Assuming it's kosher food for now. There are 3 different things I could think, why am I eating? One is because I need to survive. Right? So if I eat because I need to survive, then I'm eating in exactly the way I'm supposed to be as an animal soul. So if the animal soul is that level of klipa, remember we said it's klipat noga? Even when you're making a bracha. The bracha is holy, but then why am I eating? 2 seconds later, why am I eating? I'm not eating because I want to make a bracha. I make a bracha because I have to eat, right? So why am I eating? Because I'm hungry and I need to survive. So if that's why I'm eating, then the eating is exactly doing my exact level of existence as an animal soul. So it stays on that level of klipa. But what if I eat now, not because I'm hungry, because I really want to just overly, you know what the word indulge means? To eat overly more than I have to. Not just more in amount, but I want the food to be absolutely delicious. It's like a whole experience of eating. Now it's not just because I'm hungry. Now why am I eating? I added an extra layer of selfishness to my eating. So if klipa means to be selfish, and now I added extra selfishness because I'm not just eating to survive. I'm eating because I just want to have a blast. I want to have a fantastic good time festing that food. So now my eating is not just regular selfish. I added selfish. I added extra selfishness to the food, to the eating. So now this eating went to a lower level of klipa because it's more selfish. Now there's a third way I can eat. A third way I can eat is I'm eating because I need to serve Hashem. The only way to serve Hashem is if I have a healthy body. And in order to do that, I need to eat like a mensch. I need to work out. I need to sleep like a mensch. I need to shower. I need to wear proper clothing. All the things I do in my life, but I'm doing them now, not because I'm hungry. Oh, Shabbos is a mitzvah, it's even higher. But now it's, so eating on Shabbos is a mitzvah, it's even higher. What? So it depends. If I'm getting dressed because I want people to look at me like a normal human being, that's one level. Or I can dress because I want to show off. That's even more selfish. Or I can dress because Hashem needs me to dress like a mensch. So you're saying that a person can do a mitzvah with selfish reasons. So I'm getting dressed nice on Shabbat, but not because it's Shabbat, but because I want people to see my nice suit. Right? So it's a mitzvah, but I've stuck selfishness into my mitzvah. Is that what you're saying? I don't do it during the week. Right. So I'm wearing it now for Shabbat. Yeah. 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 Right. So exactly. My intentions, you're right. So intentions could be mixed. It's not like my intentions are pure. Right? Everybody has mixed intentions. Let's just use this as an example. We used before. If I'm eating because I want to serve Hashem later, it's also because I'm hungry. But I'm putting an extra thought into it. And the extra thought I'm putting into is, it's true I'm eating because I'm hungry, but you know something? Really, I should be eating because I need to serve Hashem properly. Right? So I'm adding a layer of thinking, of intention. So same thing with, like you're saying, wearing clothing on Shabbat. So I'm wearing it nice now because I only wear nice suits on Shabbat. But part of me is also doing it because I want to show off. Right? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, but if I went to eat the food on the table, right? The food, off the table, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're still, if it wasn't drink Shabbat, you went to done.
Right. So it's same thing with eating on Shabbat. I could be eating on Shabbat because it's Shabbos, and that's why I'm having this beautiful food. But at the same time, I'm overindulging. Right?
How do you, let's say, I've never do that.
It's all the same question, right? Are you asking the same question or a different one?
Yeah.
Similar?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me first answer this question and we'll get to that one. So you're right. Our intentions are never usually so pure like this. All only good or all only selfish. We're a mix in the two, right? But what we see now is that even when you have selfish intention, you could use your mind and add a godly intention. Right? Even if I wear suits to show off, but I can at least tell myself, look, I have a nefesh Bahamat and I like to show off. It's normal. I like to show off. But let me remind myself that the real reason is because it's Shabbos today. So what am I doing now? I'm adding a holy thought, a godly thought to my regular selfish behavior. I'm hungry, and that's why I'm eating. But I'm adding this thought. It's true I'm eating because I'm hungry. But you know something? There's something more going on here. I need to eat properly so I can concentrate on my prayer and learning later. Because if I don't eat, I'm not going to be able to concentrate. So it's true I'm eating because I'm selfish, but I'm adding an extra holy layer of holiness into my intention. And when you do that, this is the third way of eating. Now the goes up.
You get the picture?
Sorry?
You get the title. No matter what Shabbat, you're only going to overeat. So, no matter what, right?
But you have to keep it back in your mind. I'm doing this for Shabbos. As long as you keep it in your mind, it brings extra layers. So first of all, when it comes to Shabbos, right. So when it comes to Shabbat, it's a mitzvah. It is a mitzvah to eat and enjoy, right? So any enjoyment you have on Shabbat is a mitzvah. It already is a mitzvah, right? So you don't even have to, it doesn't have to be elevated, because it already is a mitzvah, right? The question is if I can get rid of my selfishness when I'm eating it. It's hard. It's a struggle, but it is a mitzvah. I'm talking about during the week when it's just for selfish reasons. I have the opportunity to add a level of holiness to it by saying it's true I'm eating because I'm hungry, but I'm also remembering that I'm eating it because I have to be a healthy person so I can serve Hashem. And then when I do that, one second, then the food gets elevated to Kedusha. And not just the food gets elevated to Kedusha, but my animal soul gets elevated to Kedusha. At least for that moment. Because in this moment, my animal soul is serving the godly soul. Cooking for Shabbat is a mitzvah for sure. Cooking for Shabbat is for sure a mitzvah. Does that answer your question? So again, I just make it clear. I'm a regular selfish human being. That's just the way I am. So I can either add selfishness by making it all more about me. I want to finesse and I want to be the best at sports and make it more selfish. Then that regular selfishness that I started off with goes even more down, goes more klipa, because it's more selfish. Or I can add some level of holiness to my thought. I'm eating because I'm hungry and I'm playing sports because I like it. But I'm going to remember in the back of my head that I'm playing sports so I can have a healthy body and serve Hashem and focus what I learn. And I'm eating so I can focus later when I'm learning. And It's true I'm enjoying my Shabbos food, but let me at least remind myself that this is a mitzvah. And then when I use those thoughts, now I'm taking all of the animal soul's selfishness and I'm twisting it by adding these thoughts. I'm twisting it into Kedusha. And now it's going up. Now my eating became holier. Because my eating now is not just for me. It is for me, but not just for me. It's also so I can serve Hashem. Same thing with eating, sleeping, sports, everything. Everything in life now has the opportunity to go down by making it all about me, or has the opportunity to go up to Kedusha by adding a level of thought that I'm doing this for Hashem. Is that clear? So this answered the question about is the Nefesh Bahamis actually bad? It's bad. It starts off as bad because it starts off selfish, but it has a possibility to add levels of Kedusha and even serve and be elevated into Kedusha if I put that thought in there. Is that clear? Okay, go. You got to answer the question? Fantastic. Okay, so this is one part of chapters 7 and 8. And the truth is that this idea of everything I do could go both directions is in everything. So I want to give a few examples. One example that the Rebbe gives is drinking good wine and eating good meat when you're over 18. Meat, you can start with now. And there he quotes the Gemara, which says that there were certain Amoraim there was a certain Amora which say, that this good smell and good wine opens up his mind so he can learn better. How does it do that?
The smell?
Good smell, spices. When the room is dirty and smelly, it's hard to focus. Smells nice. It opens your mind. So what does this mean? What this tells you is that it's not just a question of, if the only reason why I'm eating is to serve Hashem, then eat bread, eat salt. What do you have to eat sauce for? What do you have to have eggs? What do you have to have steak? Just eat bread and salt. What do you have any good food for? What do you have to have wine? Just drink exactly how much you need. Eat how much you need, and that's it. Well, I don't need any more. Because it's not just about that. If I eat food, just stale bread, and I have enough food to survive, right? But if I feel miserable in my mind now, and I can't focus on my learning because I ate a miserable breakfast, then what was the point? So eat like a mensch, feel good about yourself, even for your animal soul, but remember in the back of your head, why are you feeding your animal soul that it should feel good about itself? So that way, when I sit down to learn, it's not going to be distracted. Following? So even my enjoyment could be used for the service of Hashem, not just eating a little bit to survive. Sorry? When you stay up all night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you eat ice cream? It's to wake you up.
So I'm going to give you another example. You talk about eating ice cream on Shavuot to keep yourself engaged, right? So I'll give you an example. He quotes a Gemara which says that before Rava would give a class, before he would give a shiur, he would say a joke. He would say a joke. He would say a joke, and then his students would laugh, and then they would start learning. Why did he say the joke? To put them in a good mood so they can learn better, right? I'm not so good at this, but some teachers are good at that. They get people laughing, and you learn more that way, right? That's okay. So you learn more that way when your mind is open, right?
Yeah.
When you're when you're feeling in your own head, you don't learn as well. But when there's a joke and it's laughing, your mind's open to learn. So
The problems with school, right? You get to school tomorrow morning. I'm out of school, right?
yeah.
I go to school tomorrow morning. I just came back from. I just woke up.
Yeah.
It's early, 7:30 in the morning. I just did my prayer. I go inside class, enter class. It's like and then just come winning.
Okay. That's what the Gemara says here. That he's a better teacher, I guess. He used to give a joke before he started class. So now they're explaining that this joke, even if the joke was said on a regular dinner table, just to make a laugh, then it's klipa because it's selfish. But because the reason why he said the joke was for what? To open up their minds for Torah study, even though all they did was laugh, this joke gets elevated to Kedusha.
What if an action is selfless?
You see? So I think the same thing is true of the ice cream. If the ice cream is like that joke, if Rava can use a joke to get the students in a good mood to learn better, then why can't you use ice cream for the same reason? Certainly you can. So if I'm eating ice cream because I want ice cream, klipa. If I'm eating ice cream, so now I'm enjoying it. I'm liking it. But by liking it now, I can focus on my learning better. Then that ice cream was elevated for Kedusha. Just like the joke, just like the wine, just like the meat.
Your action
Just like the clothing, the sports, all of it.
The actual selfless.
Yeah.
But your thought is selfish.
Selfish. So that's a good question. So that's like a mitzvah with selfishness. Let's say a person gives charity. We talked about this, I think, on Thursday. Person gives charity, but he does it because he wants to. Everybody wants to show. He wants everybody to know how much money he gave. Right? He wants to show off. So the mitzvah is a holy mitzvah. It's a selfless act. It's a godly act, but he added selfishness to it. Right? So it's still a mitzvah. It's still a holy act because it's a mitzvah. That's what Hashem wants. We learned in chapter 4 that a mitzvah is Hashem's act, but the Alter Rebbe is going to say in a much later chapter, in chapter 39 or 40 even, he's going to say there that mitzvah, it's like a holy act that you stuck klipa onto it because you stuck selfishness onto that holy act. So what do you have to do? You have to do teshuvah for that. You have to do teshuvah for that selfishness. You have to do teshuvah for the way you did the mitzvah. That's the answer. Sorry? Oh, so now in chapter 8, the Alter Rebbe gets into punishment. That's exactly the next topic on these chapters. So now that we understand that klipa is selfishness and the godly soul is selfless, so when a person passes away and his neshama goes up, all of the selfishness he did in his life is now stuck to the godly soul. Is now stuck to the neshama. And how's the neshama going to go up to Shamayim? How's he going to go to Gan Eden with all the selfishness, with all the baggage of selfishness? It's holding it down. Yes, it's holding it back. So what does it have to do? What does it have to do? How does the neshama do that? How does the neshama, person who's already passed away, and neshama left the body, how does he get rid himself of all of this selfishness? And that's what punishment is. When we say punishment, it's not punishment. What do you think? Hashem's angry at you? So Hashem gets angry and screams, "You have to go to hell because you did so much. You have to pay for your bad actions." That's not Hashem's not like that. It's a bit childish. It's immature. I get angry sometimes. I want to punish them. Hashem's not like that. So what's the neshama? Why does the neshama have to go to Gehenna? To clean itself from all that selfishness. The neshama in Gehenna is a way of cleaning itself from the selfishness that it attached to itself, the klipa that it attached to itself in this life. So, yes. So, yeah, a person gets clean from them. The worse the selfishness is, the harder the cleaning is. It's like. So, but you don't only have selfishness in you. Like we said before, like your intentions are mixed, right? So you have parts of you that were good and parts of you no good, right? Yeah. So let's say your mitzvah. Let's just use the example of the mitzvah. A person who gave tzedakah, but selfishly. And let's say he didn't do teshuvah, right? So when he comes up there, he has a diamond because he has a mitzvah. But that diamond, that mitzvah, is covered with tons of mud because of all the selfishness. All the klippah. So you have to sit there and scrub it out, right? And the more muddy it is, the harder you got to scrub. The more painful it is. Right? Following? Another way of thinking about it is what?
Sorry, this is off topic. The modern day vision of hell.
Of hell, you mean?
Yeah.
I'm not sure because I think a lot of people think of heaven and hell as Hashem is like a reward system, like a point system you have in school. You did well and you're going to get a trip. You don't do well, you'll miss out on the trip. That's not the way Hashem is. That's, in English you call that punitive. Hashem's not punitive. The heaven and hell, the way Yiddishkeit understands it, the way Judaism understands it, the way Tanya understands it. I mean, it's a discussion, inshallah, there's a big discussion, but the way Tanya for sure understands it is that it's not a punishment because someone's angry at you, but it's more of a cleansing process to get to the point where we can show and find the goodness that you have, all the godliness you have. So that's a good question. How do you clean it up? So let's just think of an example. You ever heard the expression Olam Ha'emet?
Yeah.
What does Olam Ha'emet mean? Right, but Olam Ha'emet is referred to as the next world. The wind blew down the computer. But translate literally Olam Ha'emet. Translate the word literally. Olam means world, and Emet means what? World of truth. What's the truth? Is truth enjoyable or is truth painful? Oh, it depends, right? So let's use an example. Sometimes it's painful. So let's use an example. Hi, how are you? So let's use an example. Imagine you're walking down the street, you saw somebody, and you said good morning, and you smiled. That's all you did. And you didn't think about it twice. And what if you found out later that this person had a very, very rough night, was up all night out in fights, in arguments. He's walking down the street and said, people are evil. Humanity is terrible. That's it. I'm done with this whole life thing. And when you smiled and said good morning, he saw, look at this, a young child. He's smiling. There's hope for humanity. There's hope for life. And he changed his whole direction of the day and his whole direction of the next week or even life. How much joy would you get out of that moment? Yeah. You're shrugging your shoulders. You found out you saved somebody's life by saying good morning. I don't know about you, but I would be thrilled.
I think about.
How much joy would I get knowing that when I said good morning, I saved somebody's life? I get tons and tons of joy. Now you can imagine, God forbid, the other way around. Not the point. The point is you would still get joy out of it because you see the amazing truth of what you did. Doesn't matter. The fact is you would get joy if you found out about that. For sure. It's just a reaction. Sure you would. Now imagine, God forbid, the opposite. You said something negative to somebody, and chas v'shalom, how much pain would you be in? You'd be in a lot of pain. So you're right. The truth is either pleasurable or painful.
What is it? I don't get it.
If chas v'shalom, I said something not nice to somebody, and I found out later that the person hurt himself because he had a bad day, and I made it even worse for him by saying not a nice word. By saying a not nice word. Yeah? I'd be very, very pained. I don't know about you. I certainly would be very painful, and most people would as well. I'm not saying you take blame for it, but you certainly would be very painful. People have free choice.
I deserve the picture. I deserve the punishment sort of thing.
I'm not talking about deserving. I'm not talking about not deserving.
Or the discredit.
It's not a question of credit or discredit. It's not a question of it's your fault, not your fault. It's not a question if you take credit or blame. It's a question of would you enjoy it or not enjoy it? Would you enjoy that knowledge? Answer, depends. I would very much like to hear if I changed someone's life for the positive by saying good morning. And I would be very, very, very upset to find out, very pained to find out that I was part of something that was very destructive. That's it. You're splitting hairs. Doesn't matter. The point is you would enjoy it. And that's what Olam Emet is, the world of truth. When you do a mitzvah now and you connect to Hashem, so you know the words connect to Hashem, but you really know what it means to connect to Hashem? Not really. You know what it says. And you know it says that mitzvah connects you to Hashem, but you don't really appreciate it. You don't really know it. When you come to Olam Emet, then you're going to see it. And that's going to be very much intense joy. You enjoy the godliness that you created in your mitzvah, that you made in your mitzvah, that you connected to in your mitzvah. Chas v'shalom, the opposite. It's very painful. You do an Avera. Do you know what it means to disconnect from Hashem? We know it says when you do an Avera, you disconnect from Hashem. But do you really know what that means? Not really. Imagine you felt it. It's very, very painful. You felt what it means to be disconnected from Hashem in an act of a mitzvah Avera. And, sorry? So the it is. Right? It's Olam Emet, it's the world of truth. Right? So all of the truth is there. The truth is either very painful or very pleasurable. So some parts of my life, the truth is pleasure, because I did many mitzvot. And some parts of my life were very selfish, and those selfish acts are very painful to find out the truth. We clear on this?
No, if I understand right.
Yes?
You're saying maybe the concept of hell and heaven are not really a real thing. You're saying the concept.
It's very real. It's more real than our world.
What are you saying then? You're saying, oh, what I meant is you're getting punished. Not punished. Your punishment is seeing the truth of what you've done.
It's more real than this. Because what I see here is not the full truth. When I get there, that's the real truth.
I'm talking about the concept in the minds of Hollywood, in the minds of whatever.
Big mistake. So the minds of Hollywood of thinking that God picks you up and he says, oh, what a bad soul. Pff, throw them into hell. No. Made up. That's not what it is. You follow what I'm saying?
But your punishment is seeing the truth of what you've done.
That's correct. And you're asking how do you get cleansed? That's how you get cleansed. How does a person get cleansed from his selfishness? Yep, that's right. So how does a person get cleansed from his selfishness? By truly facing it. By truly facing it and owning up to it. And that's what tshuva really is. What's the tshuva? A person looks at his negative behavior, owns up to it, and says, that was terrible. And that's how you cleanse from it, and that's how you move past it. That's how you move past it. And the same thing is true in heaven. But in this world, doing teshuva is much easier. Because you can right now decide, the way I behaved till now was absolutely horrible. And you don't have to suffer because you've already owned up to it. You already cleansed yourself from it by owning up to it. But once a person gets to Shemaim, he has no more free choice. The person passes on. His soul leaves the body. He has no more free choice. He can't choose to own up to it. One second. Well, I'll in a second. Over here, now we're talking about heaven, like life after death, after a person passes away, a soul without a body. So a person's soul leaves the body. He doesn't have the free choice to own up to it. So what's the only way he can own up to his sin? By being he's no more teshuvah because he already died. His soul's in heaven now. How does he clean it? How do he own up to it? He's forced to look at it, and that's very painful. And that's what hell is. So teshuvah, now I can own up to it like this in a second. So there is parts of, that's a good question, and there is parts of hell, of Gehenna, that is for the body. Because some parts of selfishness was in the body. And for example, out there uses an example. A person who ate, not just to survive, but he ate because he really wanted to enjoy. He was fasting because he really wanted to overindulge. So he added selfishness. But where was that selfishness? In the body. And for the body has to go through the cleansing. But let's say I'm laughing at somebody else. It's an Avera. But that Avera is not really in my body. It's more in my mind and heart. That's where the selfishness was. So then the soul has to go through a cleansing. So depending on where that selfishness was, that's where it has to go. That's what has to go through the cleansing. Yes, but not exactly the way they portray it. It's not like God's an angry God throwing people into hell because he wants to punish them. Oh, so what does fire mean? Good question. Say fire. You think it's literal fire? There's no literal fire. So it depends. What kind of sin did you do? If you did a sin out of passion, your blood was boiling, your expression. So then the cleansing is to face that. And that's painful like a fire, not like a physical fire. You do. You suffer. It's very, very, it's tremendously torturing and suffering. Not physically, because no physical body. And the summer suffers, sure. But the suffering is much worse than physical suffering. Because physical suffering is on the body. But to suffer, to see the truth of what the person did and to face it and experience the truth of the negativity is very, very painful. That's what Gehenna is. You still have to cleanse from the self. That's right. So maybe it's a little bit. That's right. That's correct. So it can be cleansed. That's right. That's correct. Everybody has to go through some cleansing process, unless you're mamash tzaddik on the highest level. I don't know how many of those exist, but everybody has to do some cleansing. Or it's possible, like for example, the Gemara tells us of a story of a person whose entire life was to behave terribly, and then he did teshuvah the last second, and he died crying in teshuvah. So he already faced all of his negativity in this life. So he doesn't have to experience any pain in the next world. He cleaned himself from that. Now you understand the power of teshuvah. The power of teshuvah to face and own up to all the negativity is a very, very transformative power because it helps me let go of all that negativity. So it no longer anchors me down, to use your words. Following? Okay. Now that there adds one more element before we close chapter 7 and 8. I want to add two more elements actually. First of all, this idea of things being used for either negative or positive. So we use the example of food, we use the example of sports, joke, clothing. But there's even another example that talks about in chapter 8 is studying secular studies. Depends how you're doing it. If the reason why I'm studying, I don't know, medicine is because I want to save lives, that's a mitzvah itself. And I'm doing it because I want to make a good parnasa so I can feed my family and send my boys to yeshiva. And I want to be able to have a home so I can host guests. And I'm able to give tzedakah. So then all of my education, even the secular education, is now being used for kedusha. But if it's because I want to be the biggest doctor in the world and I want to be the richest doctor in the world and I want to have the biggest house in Hampstead, now all of that became selfish. Now here's the interesting thing. When it comes to food, remember we said before, all the selfishness gets attached to, but depending where it is. Selfishness of food, where does it attach to? The body, because the body is what eats the food. Selfishness of the mind is much deeper. So in a way, the negative effect of eating food selfishly is not so terrible. It's on the body. But the negative effect of learning secular studies selfishly is much worse because it attaches itself to the mind, which is much closer to the neshama. You following?
People use it as encouragement. Tomorrow morning I'm studying, and let's say I don't like to study like any other kid, I'm guessing, at school. So
Yeah.
study. So I use this concept of if I work, I'm gonna become rich. Use that concept. Whatever, it's selfish.
So, but why do I want to be rich? So says the Alter Rebbe, I can think about it different ways. If I'm doing it because I want to be rich, selfish. If I'm doing it because I want to be able to give tzedakah, I want to be able to raise a good Jewish family, I want to be able to host guests, now my intention has been elevated. I added a layer of holiness to that selfish motivation, like we talked about before. Yeah.
So even if you're not your intention doesn't become rich, no matter what, like you're still doing mitzvah.
That's what we talked about before, right? A person can do a mitzvah with selfish intention. So he has to clean off the selfish intention so he can get to the good, pure mitzvah, right? Right? What were you going to ask? That's what I said before. You're a person can have a mix of these feelings, right? But you have to be conscious of trying to add it's not bad to be selfish. It's normal. The challenge is to try to add as much holiness to your selfishness. It's normal, right? So it's hard to think of it this way, but I think even that could be like, we use the example of eating ice cream on Shavuos. Why are you eating the ice cream? I like it. But then when I like it, it puts me in a better mood and I learn better, right? So I think even a nice suit can be the same way. If I feel like I don't feel good about myself when I'm wearing a dirty suit, and I don't feel good about myself, I can't learn properly, I can't daven properly, then get a good suit, right? But then now it's not just selfish. I've added to the selfishness a positive intention. I'm doing it because I can feel like a mensch and come to Shabbos and I can daven properly because I know I'm feeling good about myself. You follow what I'm saying?
But it's also
because you want to show off.
No, but you can't.
You can't what? Yes. So, but he was using an example. There, you know what esrog stands for? The word esrog, Aleph Taf Reish Gimel. Well, the esrog is an esrog, right? But there's a remez that it's the Rosh Tevot. You know what Rosh Tevot is? The first letter of the word spells the first letter of the word itself has the first letter of other words, right? So Aleph stands for Al, Taf stands for Tivieni, Reish, Regel, Gimel, Gaiva. It's a pasuk in Tilma. Al Tivieni, Regel, Gaiva. Don't bring me to even a little bit of ego. And that's in the esrog. Why? Because everybody likes to have a nice esrog. But so the nice esrog, are you doing it because you want to have a nice mitzvah? Or because you want to come to shul and show everybody how beautiful your esrog is? Right? So there's a mix. It's a mix. It's mitzvah and selfish. You have to clean off the selfishness so you can get to the pure mitzvah. You're right. It's mixed. It's not so pure.
Let's say you get the most expensive. So you're rich, you get the most expensive pair of tefillin there is on the market.
Mm-hmm.
Tefillin was the Baba Sadi's tefillin.
Best ones you can possibly get. Yeah.
Whatever, let's say.
Yeah.
So I wear it tomorrow morning. Okay, fine. And when I come to shul, everybody looks at me. Let's say I put it for this cake. But when I'm wearing it at home.
Yeah. So that you know what? It's true. There are many Hasidim who used to, I'll give you an example. So many Hasidim, including myself, we wear Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam tefillin. We wear 2 pairs of tefillin. So today everybody wears it in Chabad, so it's no big deal. But it used to be that people would wear Rashis in synagogue, and then they would go home to put on Rabbeinu Tam, to put on second pair of tefillin. Why? Because they didn't want anybody to see that they were wearing a second pair. And there are some people that today wear 4 pairs of tefillin, but the other 2 pairs they'll wear at home, so nobody knows they're wearing it because they don't want to show. They don't want their holiness to have an extra layer of ego by people seeing it. So they would do it at home, and it's true. And Hasidim, because of this, would work hard to hide their mitzvahs from other people. You ever heard of the Kotzker Rebbe? The Rebbe of Kotsk. His name was Menachem Mendel. He lived in a town called Kotsk about 200 years ago. He used to say, he said, I don't know why people, they like to do all their mitzvahs in public and all their averot in private. I think it should be the opposite. Do your averot in public and let everybody laugh at you for doing averot, and do your mitzvahs in private. No one should know you're doing your mitzvah. So you're right. And the reason why he encouraged that was because he wanted to get rid of that ego that's mixed into the mitzvah. So you're right. If you can hide it and no one should know the level of Torah you're doing, the level of mitzvah, hide it. That's correct. So for example, using an example of tzedakah. Everybody used to said this once, that a person should give tzedakah and have his name on a building. Why? To encourage other people. But he should give other tzedakah no one should know about. So you do both. You have some tzedakah, people see you're doing it, but then you give tzedakah, nobody knows. You're helping a neighbor that you know is struggling. You're helping somebody else struggle. You give someone a job that needs a job without telling him why you're giving the job. Somebody knows. What? So I don't know. You have to talk to your Rav exactly. But the idea is true that a person should try to take away as much of his selfishness from the mitzvah. So there's one more element I want to add from chapter 8 before we go to the next topic. It's getting late already. So tomorrow, we get chapter 9. That's going to be the actual struggle. We're going to talk about the struggle. Because right now we talked about just the animal soul, and that the animal soul can go in 3 directions, right? It can go down into over-selfishness, into sin, where it can't be elevated. Oh, that's what I was talking before. We forgot about this. So mutar means released, right?
Yeah.
What's released means? It means I can eat that. It's released for me to elevate and use for kedusha. But something which is usher, trapped, it's not kosher, so it can't be used for kedusha. And I can't use it to serve Hashem. So Hashem says don't eat it. Because the little bit of godliness that's in there can't be elevated. When I eat that steak, and I have in mind that I want to serve Hashem, and the godliness that's in that steak, remember we said before that everything has, right? You were saying everything has a little bit of good because everything has a little bit of Hashem's energy, right? Yeah. So when I use that food, that steak, that ice cream, that joke, that suit, when I use it to serve Hashem, so what am I doing? A printer, a table, everything in the world, almost everything in the world. That's correct. Almost everything, except for unless it's not kosher. Anything which is kosher, anything which is permissible to use, it's mutar, it's released. Then I could take the godly energy there and use it for Hashem. By eating this food for the sake of serving Hashem later, I'm taking a little bit of energy and I'm revealing it because the goodness that's in it is now being exposed, now being elevated. But not kosher food. It has good, but it's trapped. It's asur. It's locked. I can't use it for holiness.
If I get to with my neighbor, let's say here,
sorry, I know that's a mitzvah.
But it's
okay, so maybe there you're using a little bit, maybe, but that's not an aveda, right? The aveda is not to you're like well, pigs or something. But let's say owning non kosher meat is not the aveda. The aveda is to eat it, right? So if I didn't eat it and I used it to give somebody else, then that was a good act. That's right. So you're right. There are certain things you're not allowed to have pleasure from. For example, you might not even be able to get your number. For example, mixing milk and meat, you may not be able to give. Because there's certain things you can't. So I'm telling you, the reason is all of these things. It depends how locked the godliness is in there. The divine energy that's in there, Hashem's energy that's giving it alive, how locked is it? If it's very locked, I can't have any pleasure from it. It's a little bit locked, I can't eat it, but I can give it to a neighbor. If it's not locked at all, then it's kosher food, I can eat it. You following? It's okay. It all depends on how locked the Hashem's energy that's in there. Are you following? Okay, so I want to conclude with the last part of chapter 8. So we said like this: if the food is not kosher, I can't eat it, right? So it's the kind of thing that I can't use Hashem's energy there to serve him because it's so locked down, it's usher, it's trapped. But what happens if I did eat it? It's an aveda. Now this klipa is stuck to me. So we said before, tshuva gets rid of it, right? If I own up to it and I realize how bad it was, I'm letting go of that negativity. Right? That's what tshuva is. And I change my ways. Tshuva is I say that was bad. I'm no longer doing that again. Right? That's the tshuva.
Tshuva could also be bad. Think about it. You only do tshuva just not to get punished in hell. Right?
That's not the right way to do tshuva. The right way to do tshuva is not to not get punished. The real way to do tshuva is, okay, so you're right. You're right. Tshuva is a decision that tshuva is a decision I'm no longer going to do avedas. The motivation could be a little bit a low level. That's true, it's a low level. But it's not the real proper tshuva. Proper tshuva is a person says, I don't want to betray Hashem anymore. I don't want to betray Hashem.
So you say, I'm not going to betray Hashem. So you do tshuva, 2 steps, right? That you have to say, you have to regret it, whatever. You won't do it again, right?
Yeah.
You don't do it again, but your intentions are... Your intentions also are not to get punished.
So that's true. If that's a beginning level of teshuvah, but as a person grows, he should do high levels of teshuvah. And he says, you know what? The reason why I'm not doing sin is not because I don't want to get punished, because I don't want to betray you, Hashem. I don't want to let you down. It technically counts. It technically counts. Technically means his teshuvah is accepted, but there's still some Some selfish is less. They have to work harder and work harder and work harder. And it's true. The Gemara says that a person should be doing teshuvah his whole life because there's constantly higher and higher levels and higher reasons to do teshuvah. But let me make the point we're saying here. So a person does teshuvah and he lets go of the negativity. He lets go of that aveda that he did. But then there's another kind of teshuvah. There's an even higher level of teshuvah where a person can turn his sin into a merit, into a zchut. Zedonis nasla kazachis, the Gemara says, that his sin becomes merit. How does the sin become a merit? There's all kinds of explanations in the Gemara, and this is what the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya here. Why am I doing teshuvah? What is teshuvah? What is the love of Hashem? I'm coming closer to Hashem, right? Now the question is like this. Why am I coming closer? One reason we said before, a person is doing teshuvah because he doesn't want to get punished. It's a low level. A person gets to a higher level and he says, I'm doing teshuvah because I don't want to betray Hashem. A little bit closer. But imagine a person does teshuvah out of a really burning deep love for Hashem. How do you get a burning deep love for Hashem? Anybody? So let's think of an example. When you go to overnight camp and you start to feel homesick, that's when you really love your parents. Do you love your parents less when you're home? Of course you love your parents when you're home, but you feel the burning love much more when you're away from them, right? Or when you're sick. Yeah, when someone's sick, chas v'shalom, right? When you feel like you're losing them, that's when you start to really feel that love. That's right. So it's not that you love them anymore, but you appreciate the love. The love starts to burn up more inside of you. So it says the Alter Rebbe like this. Imagine a person that's teshuvah, not just because I says, you know what, that bad behavior, I want to get rid of it, and I only want to serve Hashem. He goes even deeper, and he says, I was so far away from Hashem. Look how far away I was. And because I was so far away, now his love is even more burning for Hashem. So what happened? The fact that he was far away from Hashem made him feel more love for Hashem. You see? You see? The fact that he felt far from Hashem means he has to really think. He has to really learn and understand what it means that a sin makes me far from Hashem. And he has to really be bothered by that. Not just I understand it. Oh, I was far from Hashem, now I want to get closer. He really, really is bothered by the fact that he was far from Hashem. And because he is so bothered by the fact that he's far from Hashem, he starts to burn up with a real desire and love. I want to get closer to you, Hashem. Now, what does that mean? If he does such a deep level of teshuvah, that means even the past bad behavior is part of the fuel that makes his love go stronger. So it's part of his teshuvah. So it's not just one level of teshuvah where he says, I'm not sinning anymore, that's it, I'm done, I'm over. That's a good teshuvah. But then a higher level of teshuvah is, it takes the past, it takes the bad, and turns it into a good. Because the fact that he was bad makes him love Hashem more. Because the bad reminds him and makes him feel, I was so far away from Hashem. And the fact that I'm so far away from Hashem makes me burn up with a desire to want to get closer. And he turned it into a zechut. That's what Alter Rebbe explains the Gemara. You following? Before I ask the question, do you understand?
Yeah.
Clear? Okay, now ask the question. Go ahead.
It's hard to love someone when you don't see them. When you're not next. How do they expect? How do we expect to us to gain such a love?
It's a good question. How do I love Hashem if he's so far away from me, if I don't see him? So first, it's basically what it is. How can I love Hashem if I don't see him? The truth is that's the entire point of this book. Remember, the cover page of the book was, the pasuk says, the serving Hashem is very close to you, beficha in your mouth, lavavcha in your heart, to do it. And the Alter Rebbe said that this book is going to explain how it is near to you to love Hashem. So we're going to get there. That's the point of this book. But just to validate you, you know what validate means? The Rabbi Levi you ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Famous Rebbe, actually a friend of the author of this book, author of the Tanya, friend of the Alter Rebbe. They studied together by the Maggid of Mezrich. They were students together, and they actually became mechutanim. You know what mechutan is? Like their children married each other. So they're very close friends. Rabbi Levi and the Alter Rebbe. I think their grandkids married each other, not their kids, not their children. Anyway, Barditchev, no. So the Rabbi Levi he was known for having lots of love of a fellow Jew, and he would defend Jews as much as he could. Like, for example, he would say, when he would see someone greasing the wheels of his wagon, it's the thing he used to do, to grease the wheels of your wagon, make sure it's smooth, while the person was wearing talis and tefillin. So most people would say, what a disgrace that talis and tefillin greasing the wheel, he used to say, Hashem, look at your children. Even when they grease their wheels, they're praying to you. He would always turn it around to try to find a positive spin. Yeah. So he used to say, Hashem, it's not fair. You took a world and you put all the goodies in front of their eyes. And you took godliness and you put it into a book. You should do the other way around. Put godliness in front of their eyes and put the goodies in a book and see how they behave then. Understand? He was defending Jews, saying it's very hard to fall in love with Hashem when you don't see. So you're right. But that's going to be the objective of this book. To get to the point where we could start thinking about how we can love Hashem. Following?
How did they take it down so easy?
Oh, he's not going to make it sound easy. He's going to make it sound available and accessible, but definitely hard. Remember, it's the long and short way. It's a long journey, takes a lot of work, but it's doable.
It's like tomorrow morning. Whatever. Let's say me.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say me. I'm single. Let's say I meet someone online.
Yeah.
Never met them in my life.
Yeah.
Let's say they live in the United States. Never met them in my life. We speak. Let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Then randomly, listen. Ask her to marry me off the internet.
Yeah. So that's you're right. So that's what he's going to teach us to start to see Hashem in life. That's the idea. Start to learn to see Hashem in the world, in our life, and in our reality. It's part of what he's going to do. It's a long journey, and it's hard work, but that's the journey of life. And that's what we're going to do as we go on this Tanya. Okay? So recap chapter 7 and 8 is the Nefesh Bahamut and the way it acts in the world. Right? In chapter 6, we said the Nefesh Bahamut is Klippa, which is basically just all about me. In 7 and 8, they said there are 3 ways we can do that. Me. We can be overly we can just do it just to survive, just stay the way I am. Or I can be overly selfish. That goes down, lower level of Klippa. Or I can add a level of holiness by using it for Hashem. But only if the food is kosher. If the food is not kosher, it's trapped in negativity and I can't elevate it. That's what we learned from chapter 7 and 8. And we also added this idea of teshuvah, a high level of teshuvah, where a person loves Hashem so deeply, and the love he feels for Hashem is because he was far, then even the sin gets elevated to kedusha as a merit. Clear?
Yeah, I have one question.
Related to Tanya or?